This is week 4 now. I came home, still setting it all up, and it's just really time consuming, and I'm really busy, so I just decided not to do anything.
Well, how are you?
He says so. Sure hope so.
Yeah, got all about that.
Bill gave me an extra one.
He figured he's going to have to go up here.
But you need to see my passport, apparently.
Well, hopefully so. And I hope you can make some.
I'm a real person.
Yes, I know. And Fairbanks, honestly, people did expect me. I mean, they're every talk to me, he always. There's a little button, a black one up on the left side. Go on all the way to the side.
So do we think we're working?
It should be working. Well, you know what? It's going to check this on. That might be why. Let me do that. And we'll see if it works. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, Fairbanks is a good place for us.
Yeah. You know. Except everybody, no one up there cares about driving around.
Yeah,
Banged up.
whether they care what
I said, yeah, there's some pocket that should have money in there. They're just all a bunch of weird people.
the funny thing is Fairbanks business.
Hey, how's it going?
With the size.
They shook us up. You're still over there.
Cool.
No more padding.
Yeah. It's a miracle.
Yeah, why'd they do that?
Here, give these to your wife. All of them are. And then you put
Passport?
Yeah, we combined them for Christmas discounts. We picked up the fifth purse.
Yes.
Here for one of our nieces. We'll have to buy. Any really fun stuff for them?
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of cool stuff in. A lot of cool stuff. Yeah, we've been excited.
Yeah, I just figured they'd all sell cool stuff.
Yeah. Well, I get more and more excited about it because really I find better stuff all the time. So I'm kind of, some of the stuff I'm saying.
Is it still kind of the same balance or some local or?
Some's local, and I'm trying really hard to get more local. I've contacted people, and, you know, if I could just feel comfortable that they can keep supply coming to me when I need it. Right now, my suppliers, if I call them and I say I need this and, you know, this color by this date, they're like, boom, on it.
Do you have anything or just kind of one-off or two-offs or that kind of thing? Or do you do it online for a while to do that?
Well, no, I do. I mean, and for, in particular, local folks, I do that, like, you know, nice job.
Okay, thank you for that.
We sold a clock today that this local artist made. We've
I
got
do ask
mostly
Penny Card that document has
There's
social security number or
local
stuff on
artists
it.
that are, you know,
Appreciate it.
and then some of the stuff that I get from an artist in Virginia, actually, some of them are unique, very, you know, because she uses recycled stuff. So, so they are really good. But yeah, I like doing that if I can, if I think that they're a lot of stuff.
Good evening.
Good, how are you? Well, sure. They're pretty round.
Oh.
You have to look at the front thing.
Once a year they rearrange people.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Well, I'm here in case I get everything good.
You've been good.
Yeah, we've got it.
It's only one.
Keep moving back.
Yeah, that's all. And when we gave you that set, it was in progress. So it showed us real life and where things are going to change.
Wait with me.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. What was this telephone number? Oh, last 4 digits, okay. Bingo.
So with this software, Sharon, is it you that has to load up the PDFs or something? You can give that to us. That's good, though.
See, that's, I just,
And people who do this out there will create the
whole,
And Tom Burrick, who walks around and knows that he's a little over 59, he's been saying that one before that.
And it's been falling in the past 6 months. Every meeting.
Big savings here or something, huh?
I asked him, how are you doing this? He said, I just work, 2 hours during the regular work week. Oh, yeah. I get trained on the other. So he's not getting really bad.
So individually lives up to its software thing. No.
There are a lot of books about skills to work out and things. Well, I think that it's because it's not really tailored to here. See, this is the problem. You buy it sort of a software, and then they try to, we load on our own stuff so that it's customized in that way, but just a lot of functionality is missing. And we've told them about it, and they say that maybe the next, iteration will have those bugs worked out. But for now, it's sort of difficult to use it the way that they intended, which is for us to be able to broadcast the meetings, real time, and then to do the minutes into the system is really difficult. See, this is one of the issues and has been, I think, from the beginning, even with the old system, it was so smart, doesn't it? To be sort of indefinite, they take that stuff out, so they don't have very, very time frame. When it's over, and that's why we have our municipal guy at all these meetings, because they're still, doing things to work it out, and they're trying to use the IT department at the muni to work out things, but it's not easy.
Hey.
You're right. How far you the comments on how much you're doing great. Figuratively.
Well, you're just sauntering. This chair's very good.
Am I late?
Oh, would you like?
I don't know. Try somebody.
The Tracy's over.
That's kind of interesting. I wanted to lean mine back.
She's working with me in our archaeology. No, not
Oh, she was my dad.
executive chair. Yeah.
So you have to find any person?
Right.
Yes, any person. No,
Oh, no,
she's
my
going to
wife,
write.
Tracy. Yeah.
Oh, good.
We actually
So watch for, aren't that many places you can do it. It's not like the free one. Oh, probably, I've got a lot of oil companies and things for people in different locations.
have this $100
We do not have any archaeologists, no. There's so little use for it. I mean, once in a while, you know, in an EIS or... We do some, yeah, but we team up with somebody else, yeah, when we do need that. I don't think there'd be enough, you know, on a regular basis to support a position. Here in Alaska, or they bring them in from other places? Oh, did they? Well, they're doing a lot of the gas pipeline, I think, work, or they got a chunk of something recently, so, you know, they may need some people for a few years.
How's that clay?
By the way, I know we met before, but Pat Coleman, that's fun. I didn't get a chance to say hello. Yeah, but we met.
I did not. I think.
Yeah, I came one night. There was discussion about winter cities.
Audition for compliments.
Good to be here. Yeah, I'll give you a card. Are you looking for a pen? All right. Oh, they all got little snacks. Come here. This one has popcorn ball and some nuts. And
Candy bar? No. Pork skins?
trail mix,
Ooh, fried pork skins with hot.
just in case, you know, somebody gets hungry.
Never mind.
Very poor diet. Maybe we get snowed in.
We'll know where the stuff is, right?
This is it? This is all we need to do? Ah. My middle initial is
Oh my goodness.
I'm sure you're not responsible for this terrible faux pas.
Oh, sorry.
Never
Yeah. I haven't worked with her, you know, personally yet. Yeah, she's still with the company.
What kind of things do you do?
What do I do? You know, city planning, starting kind of a new department there. They've never really done that before. Yeah, it's going good. Oh, it's places like that in Anchorage.
Okay, let's call to order our meeting for the Urban Design Commission for Wednesday, December 10th, 2008. We have a roll call.
Templin, Kathy,
Present.
Doherty,
Here.
Kowalski, Mia,
Yeah.
Miller,
Here.
Joyner,
Here.
Coleman,
Here.
Briggs.
Here. We have minutes in our packet from the meeting from November 12th, 2008. Does anybody have any comments on the minutes? I had one. This is really stupid, but on page 14, there's a suggestion that I ask that they apply 20th century planning principles to school design. I think I said 21st century planning principles, but I'd like to 18th century. Okay, well, it's the same thing, really. But anyway, if you could make that change. Any other comments on the minutes? Patricia?
I had just one on page 13. It says, suggest we write a letter indicating that grafting is not an acceptable horticulture practice. And it wasn't grafting, it was the practice that they undertook on the trees. I don't know that it has a name, but it wasn't grafting. It was
You want
an
to try
odd
to...
staking. The correction they made to the lost leader is not acceptable.
Any other comments for the minutes? Corrections? Any objections to approving the minutes? Seeing none. With those comments, they'll be approved. Any disclosures tonight? Doesn't look like we do, so we'll get on to the single item on our agenda. It's the site plan landscape approval request for case 2008-114. Can we have a staff report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The middle school has occupied this site for many years. The site improvements will have an effect on some of the neighboring houses to the south due to the close proximity of the new two-story wing. Municipal code requires a 15-foot buffer landscaping between single-family residential and institutional uses. The south side of the site abuts single-family residential and is subject to this requirement. If the existing vegetation does not meet Title 21, then a sound barrier fence may be used to mitigate the impact of the close proximity of the new two-story school wing with the adjacent homes. The service area is indicated on sheets L1.0 and L1.2, but does not include the location of the trash compactor and loading dock. The plans also do not indicate the type of screening. The materials and colors should be similar to those used for the building exterior. The submittal does not indicate if heated sidewalks are under consideration. The submittal also does not mention whether special needs children will attend the school and whether they arrive by bus. If special needs children are part of the program, consideration should be given to the provision of heated sidewalks to facilitate safe access from the bus loop to the building entrance. Also, 2 rain gardens are proposed, some part of which the parking lot drainage will drain into the rain garden bioswale in the median. The second rain garden is adjacent to the northeast corner of the building. Caution is recommended against locating the rain garden too close to the school. Rain garden literature recommends locating these at least 10 feet from a residential house to avoid water accumulation near the foundation. An even greater distance is advisable given the potential for a larger volume of water from the school. The overall landscape plan shows an outdoor classroom located near the main building entrance. The classroom shows many concrete seats. Staff questions the location of the classroom at the primary building entrance, given that the space may be used for only 2.5 months of the school year. The empty concrete seats will be seen and on continuous view by those people, everyone going in and out of the building. Consideration should be given to the use of portable seating that can be stacked in the school when not in use. The outdoor classroom would benefit from integrating it into the landscape such that when it is not in use, it blends with the surrounding landscape. I can answer any questions the commissioners may have.
Any questions for staff? Okay. Do we have a petitioner here to speak?
Hello, Mr. Chairman and committee. This is Pat Cricino, architect for the project, and okay, that's it. I guess I got to learn something about their technology up here. Because I already got the board here, you have this in your packets, and the first part of it, I think I've showed it before, the existing site and where the building is and how close it is to Jewel Lake Road. The latest plan that we have is similar to this, and it's basically showing that we're moving the bus pull-off to the left side of the site. It was on the right side before in the past, and now it's going to be on the left side. And the area that's in front of the school is going to be used for a recreation and play area for the kids. The principal is very concerned about the site. It's a small site, and we're trying to make as much of the site available for the outdoor playing kids. So the parking lot is changed from the original design where we have 90-degree parking in the front, and then we have the drop-off lane that's on to the north of that, and there's between it is the landscape buffer that's going to become the biodegradable for the parking lot to drain into it, and there's going to be storm drain. I'm sorry, a catch basin, because there is no storm drain out here. It's a catch basin where we have some dry wells, and this, to mitigate that, we're going to have it flow from there through the rain garden, as Sharon said, and then out to the back to the play field area. There's going to be a swell created there. We have budgetary constraints as such that we've been working with. This project is going to be it's a GMGC, which means the contractor was selected. We're working with them about ways of reducing our cost. And let's see. The project will have in the rear, at this point, there will be 4 modules that will be in the rear, and we have room for 6, but we're going to, first when we start the school, it's going to be used with those 4 modules. The one question I have, our concern is about this 15-foot buffer that's adjacent to the south property line. As you can see from the property line on the south, represents the 15-foot easement that goes to the lake. The lake is further to the west up here. And we are having to consider for fire access on the school and also for access back to the lake, we need to have a driveway area that goes there. And because of that and the location of the existing building, as you recall, this is an existing building we're adding to. We're limited with with the actual gymnasium that we're keeping, that we cannot shift. We tried but probably about 50-some schemes about looking at how we could do this 2-story addition. So because of that, we're approximately 30 feet from the property line with the building and 40 feet to the existing, the stairway is 30 feet and the building's 40 feet. So with the 20-foot wide aisleway, we're not going to be able to get 15 feet of vegetation barrier. In the last previous meeting we had, I discussed about combination of, for example, on the left side, we're extending the landscaping, say 20, 25 feet. and it necks down to 10, 5, and then it goes back to 20-some feet. So the net effect of the along the whole property will be 15 feet of area for vegetation. And because of the existing intersection, probably this is the most critical one, the intersection to the south, on the left there, has a street light that's just been signaled and is tied in with the city municipality's New Strawberry Road intersection, and we have a street light now. And this was years of coordination for that, and they determined it had to be there because it has to align with Strawberry for the intersection of the light. So we have no option with moving that driveway. It has to be where it is. And it's already, actually, if you go out there, you can see it's built. And so we're aligned with that exit, and that's how we're exiting this parking lot. It's one entry in, one exit out, and it's a couple lanes so that we'll be able to move traffic, and it's coordinated with the light fixture. And so that's a critical element that we have to abide by. So with all that said, I do have a proposal for item number 4 about the 15-foot buffer. And after it says Title 21 requirements, I was considering adding the clause, or provide evidence that adjacent homeowners are happy with the proposed mitigation design. We are looking at all sorts of options besides the vegetation of fences, and there is an existing fence there right now. It is heavily planted on both sides by the neighbors, and there is concern from not only the school district, and we have the principal here about it, but also their surrounding neighbors about security for the school. And there is if you look further to the west on the south property line, there's an easement for pedestrians from the subdivision that walk in from the back area and walk down this driveway and access point along the south property line. There was a concern that the residents want to be able to see not only the facility but the playground area, that they got to have some kind of security so that they have visual contact with the people. So the suggestion was this sound fence, and it's opaque and solid, and it blocks any kind of visual contact with the site. And we're concerned about that for those various reasons. And we have been working, I know the principal has been working with some of the property owners there, and we're trying to work a solution that will be compatible to everybody. And is there anything else we're going to cover? The playground. Do you have any? Okay. I think that's it. I guess if you have any questions, I'd be glad to take them.
Commissioner Briggs.
Could you please walk me through the pedestrian access coming off Jewel Lake Road if people are coming into the site?
Sure. First of all, there is a bus pull-out lane to the south property line, and the crosswalk is up at the south side of the intersection. So the crosswalk to get across Jewel Lake is at that intersection where the street light is tying together with the crosswalk. And there's also a traffic guard that comes out. And the sidewalk entry to the school will be along the south property line until it gets beyond the bus turnoff, and then it turns right and enters the school. There is a south entry on the school they can go directly into or come across the front to go in the front entry. So the majority of the traffic, pedestrian traffic, comes from there, and the other one is from the west down along the south property line. Let's make it easier.
And another question that relates to this is we have two plans in our package. We have one dated...
Yeah. You might-
November 3rd, we have several actually, November
Right.
3rd, October 17th. I'm assuming November 3rd with the curvilinear pathways is the most recent.
Yes, it is, the one that's on the wall, or it's shown there. This one is the original one, started, and then we have been working with, this is Elise Higgins with Earthscape, with the landscape architect, this community, and we came up to soften those fields. You can see from this is more a geometric thing, and this is more of a looser laid, and working on the playgrounds. So this is the latest that you have right there on the screen.
Thank you. Pedestrian circulation is a bit clearer.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And let me just finish with the, from the north, there is a sidewalk and bike trail. And that comes down Jewel Lake, and so they turn into the site and go along the hockey rink and then into the front. So that's how the pedestrian traffic comes from the north and the south. And to cross Jewel Lake, they have to cross at the south entry where the street light is.
Is there any difference from which direction the majority of student bike traffic would come?
You're talking about traffic to the school, the drop-off
Yeah,
traffic?
in any students that might be bicycling?
Okay, sure. I'll have the principal come up. But the bike trails are, like I said, from the north.
Okay.
I'm sorry, from the north, they go on that bike trail, and also from the southwest, they come in from that bike trail. And then, of course, they can do the bike trail along Jewel Lake.
And could you clarify where the bicycle racks are in the plan, sorry? Right there? Okay.
Do you want to hear from the principal?
I'm good.
Okay.
Another question for you is for the combined bus playground area, will that be fenced? Or will that have a
I'm
gate
sorry,
on it?
could you repeat that, please?
Will there be a gate on that combined bus turnaround playground area?
Okay, there will be, in the front, you can see in the playfield area, there's going to be a fence, and that's to keep balls and kids from running out into the play area. And where the bus drop-off, there will be a gate there that's going to be put across so that somebody just can't drive back in there and drive around the backside of the school.
And then my last question, snow storage, or is all snow trucked off-site?
This is a tough site, and it's going to be hauled off the site, but we are allowing some areas for snow storage, particularly anything to the north and to the northwest. We can push off to the play areas. It's just the parking lot. We experimented with trying to move the hockey rink to accommodate more snow, and we're finding budgetary constraints of moving the hockey rink. So we're pretty much going to have to be hauled off.
Thank you.
Skinner?
Yeah, thanks. It sounds like security is an issue on the south side. And I'm looking at E1.2. I don't see a lot of, I see the lighting plan, so the front of the site looks like it's well lit, probably for parking and playing on the hockey rink, but I don't see any additional lighting along that south side to maybe make it a little more conducive to security. There might be lights on the building, however, where there's enough illumination there where neighbors feel comfortable.
Okay. You're looking at E1.2?
Yes.
Okay. There is existing parking lot lighting that's parallel to Jewel Lake, as you can see along Jewel Lake, and the plan is to, we're going to have to redo that parking lot so the new poles will come in, and that'll be stretched along parallel to the bike trail in Jewel Lake. Then there'll be another row on the drainage median strip between that and the drop-off. And then, I'll just show right here. So there's a line of poles right here. And then there are some poles located around the school, one near the bus stop, and I think one over here by the hockey rink. And then there's going to be, I know there's some lights on the building. And for the back play area, you can see there's a couple light poles in the back for the play areas.
And those will provide sufficient enough
Yes,
light
right.
for those security worries that the adjacent neighbors
Yes,
had?
yes.
Okay.
that was a big issue with the, especially with the modules back there, that we have enough light so that it will be able to be used. In fact, the new school is being designed to have auxiliary plug-in for motorhomes for their program that they have, where the motorhomes park in the back, plug into the school, and the caretaker kind of thing for retired people that come up from Lower 48. And so they're going to continue with that program to make, that's a big concern, I know.
Did you have issue with any of the other comments that staff had made?
No, we're okay. Just at number 4.
Thank you.
Commissioner Joyner.
I had a question on that. There's a discussion of trying to save some of the plants along the front of the school or not save them, and I couldn't tell if you think you'll save them or you're... It often isn't worth it, and sometimes it is. But it mentions May Days, too, and those have become a problem because of invasiveness, so, I probably wouldn't try to save those, spend money to save them.
No, we are very committed to, I know Elise, and for the existing trees that are there because of that vegetation is so great along Jewel Lake. And actually, we had a discussion yesterday as far as moving the parking lot to be further west, pushing it further west so that we could do, because we're going to have to redo the parking lot, not only because of new water lines coming in, but the storm drain, I'm sorry, when I say storm drain, I mean dry well connected with lines that'll be, these dry wells have to be interconnected because eventually if they ever do a storm drain system that they can tie it into the system that will be going down Jewel Lake. So there's going to be a lot of excavation on the site, and because of that, and the new mass standards that we have to, with even if the ground it's up to 3 feet of gravel, so we are going to try to push it back so we can save those trees along Jewel Lake.
And I noted you were trying to plant some trees maybe that are more like the Japanese style.
I'm going to let Elise talk to this.
Okay. Which I think is a great idea, and there's probably some others. And I was just going to recommend maybe you talk to Doug Trick. He's a school teacher, so he recognizes what has to happen at a school, but he's experimented a lot with Japanese from the Kuril Islands, and I think it'd be great to have some interesting things that would work there, but would really contribute to the educational value.
Thanks, Elise Huggins. We will talk to Doug Trick. He's a great resource, I agree.
That's all I had.
Other questions? Sharon?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a couple of questions. On the south side, Pat, you had said that there's an existing fence along there now. Can you describe the height and the materials of that fence?
I think it's 6 feet, and it's chain link, and correct me, Mr. Garrity, is there...
Yeah, it's a chain link fence. It's got a lot of growth on both sides of it. So all the way from this point right here, the owner of this property on the corner put up his own wood fence that's behind the chain link. And the chain link continues all the way down here. There's a gate there, and then down to here and turns the corner down here at the bottom. So it's chain link with a lot of vegetation, especially on the side of the properties.
And there's no slats in that chain link fence?
No.
Okay. And my next question, are there any special needs kids that attend this school?
We do not have any, for instance, intensive need programs or special autism classrooms. Of course, any elementary school can have a special needs student at any given time. We have had in the past students in wheelchairs. So it is always a possibility, but it has not been common for our school.
Did you all consider doing any heated sidewalk
I'll let him speak to that.
Yes, we did, and we did all sorts of possibilities for life cycle costing and using reheat and et cetera. But we're budget challenged, and it's very unlikely that we will have the money to be able to do that.
Well, I had a question, and it had to do with, I keep coming back to, I think this is the third time we've seen this, different versions of this, but the drive, the fire department access along that south property line and the encroachments and the lack of the buffering that's happening there. We talked about this last time as a concern, and I think part of my confusion comes with the graphics on the drawing. It seems to indicate that everything east of the old wing is demolished and new. But then, I look at the plan, it appears as though you've got some sort of special delineation around the gym, like that's maybe existing to remain. So it's not all remove and replace.
That's correct. If you could look at the slide on the wall, you can see the red is the renovated that we're keeping. The gym is this box to the right, and this section right here is being demolished, as well as this section in here. But because the school has to be occupied during construction, the normal construction sequence would be to tear this down, deal with the site and parking, and then get into the backside. But we have to house the students in that. So what's going to happen is we're going to have a fence constructed that separates this building from the front, and the construction will go on with the new wing, which, as you can see, this is of course, it's an older one, but you can see the new wing adjacent wraps around the gymnasium, and the dash line represents the old wing, and that old wing will be, after the building will be built first, and we're going to move the students from the old wing into the new wing, and then we can do demolition. So that's pretty much how it has to happen because of the site and the limitations and the extreme care that has to go on during the construction.
I've always had a hard time when petitioners come and they say that they've got an existing situation that they can't design around when they're building new building. And just looking at applying the laws that we live by equally to all petitioners, it just seems like there's some choices that are being made by the designers as to how much that wing encroaches to the south, and the reprogramming of space to what appears that there's some space perhaps to the north, that could be annexed, that's not being annexed, and that this encroachment is sort of one of your own making. And that's what I'm trying to get around.
Okay. Just let me explain first. We've gone through about 52 different schemes, and our first schemes was to come to the north. Now, there's an 8-foot drop in elevation here, and it drops off even further, 10 to 15 feet. So this line right here where that paving is, there's a 6-foot drop right off the edge of that, and then it continues. And the problem, we did try putting wings to the north and trying to make that work to the north. Part of the reason with the GMGC is to have a contractor on board able to give us construction cost, and we did construction cost estimates on this. As you recall, the budget is really severely challenged because it came from the 04 budget and had to be increased for inflation, but it never continued to show. We have 42,000 square feet of new building, and before it was only about 4,000. So because of our challenge, we tried to do to this north, and the sequence of the hockey rink, the proximity close to the hockey rink, and the circulation with the gym, because the gymnasium became, one of the main issues of where that was located. We had to live with that. And the drop-off. If you notice the drop-off, we're relegated with north entry here, south entry here, and the access onto Jewel Lake, this intermediate driveway, will remain. And because of the commuter school and the parent drop-off, we need as much linear distance on the curb. And so what that does is it puts the school behind the hockey rink and the main drop-off in front of it. And it became a real challenge. It was many reasons why it was done, and cost had a large part of it, the terrain of the site. And after we did that, we wouldn't have a soccer field. They use this field for Boys and Girls Club and the soccer, and that's a really well-used field that is, and as well as the hockey field. And we would encroach into that, and we did not have, as you can see from the site, enough room to get that field back.
Yeah, I guess I understand all of the site encroachments and the linear drop-off and all of your access points, but you've made a conscious decision in the red area there of the new building that you're building to put it in a configuration that creates an encroachment to the south. For example, if you put the stage platform storage on the west side of the multipurpose room instead of the north side, your building would be shorter, and you could slide it farther away from that south property line. You have an infinite number of choices as a designer as to how to make your building fit and make the sequencing of demolishing the old building work with the new. But we brought this to your attention last time, and I guess I just see the same problem still existing. And a chain link fence with a fire access drive doesn't strike me as being the same kind of buffer as a 15-foot landscape buffer. And I guess I'd like to hear more explanation as to how you've solved that problem that every other petitioner that comes before us is required to solve.
Well, as we said earlier, the neighbors are pretty integrated with the school, and one of the, obviously one way to resolve this would be, to put an opaque fence all the way down the property line to block the, the visual enhancement, which basically the fence does, or the landscaping. We felt, landscaping is a much softer way to do the buffering. The sidewalk that exists on the south side would remain there regardless because of the intersection. So the section from here to here, there is no other alternative because of the way we're locked into this intersection, that the new intersection is built with the coordination of the lights and the crosswalk. So because of that and the drop-off issue, all the students would have to come in from that south side. So regardless, if we wanted to do it, the sidewalk already exists. That's how it's existed since, for the last 40 years. And basically the homeowners along that property line have made attempts to, if there was a concern about the visual enhancement, because if you look at the existing school, it's no different. Actually, we are set back further. The new school is set back further than the existing school was.
I don't think it's a visual enhancement. It's a buffer between two different zoning uses. And again, you're completely reconfiguring this site to make it work. And you've done a pretty good job of that. But you're consciously placing the bus loop there. You could relocate that bike trail anywhere you wanted to. I'm just having a hard time understanding that these are challenges that you've been given that you can't overcome through design.
Are you talking about this bike trail to the north?
No, the other one, the multi-use path coming from the intersection.
And going up along the south property line?
If you had more buffer space, if your building wasn't as close to the property line as you've placed it, if you shifted the lower wing 15 feet to the right, for example, you'd have more options.
Well, all I can tell you is that the program, we're with the immersion program and the need for their need was really for 32 classrooms, not just 24. And we're trying to capture that site footprint with the two-story building as much as we possibly can to mitigate the footprint. And
but as much as you possibly can relies on the code-required buffers and the code-required fire lanes. You've gone more than you possibly can, and that's the issue that I'm trying to stress here.
Well, as I said earlier, the first two lots here that are adjacent to the intersection, these first two lots are, there's really, we're locked into that because of the intersection and the way that's already been established. So that would leave this section from here. And what I proposed last time was to use the linear distance of that times 15 feet, multiply that out, and use, that's a minimum square footage of landscaping, but it's going to exceed that, as you can look up here to the west. And we feel we have actually more landscaping than just the 15-foot buffer all the way down the south property line. The problem is that it is clustered. It isn't all in one continuous strip. So, and because of it's because of the existing neighborhood. I mean, the principal and the school and PTA and, of course, the community council have made all attempts with the surrounding property owners to deal with this, and they basically they like the fact that they can have visual access to the school playground area. And with the additional buffering that we're going to add with additional square footage, it just isn't going to be, it's going to be not a continuous line, but a variegated line. So I don't think we're reducing our responsibility to put, like-kind landscaping. It's just, and I guess the best comparison would be car dealerships. When you have Title 21 for a 10-foot buffer on materials, that they allow you to cluster the landscaping rather than have a continuous line because of the obvious visual access that they're trying to achieve. And I don't see this much different than that.
And I would agree with you if your plans somehow delineated the dimension of the landscape buffer and dimensioned the additional enhancement of landscape buffer and provided some sort of narrative or explanation as to how one thing mitigates the other. But I don't see any dimension on landscape buffers on the south side. It's almost like we're not supposed to see that there's a problem here. And that's what I'm reacting to.
Okay. Well, as I said, we're developing this. This is continually being developed and changed. And one of the issues was, the landscaping to the south was always, that was the plan from day one when I told you that earlier. We haven't, that's one thing that we're planning on doing is to delineate it so you can see the exact amount and area and square footage and how much planting area is put there. And part of that issue has been dealing with with actually the street intersection and and whether we could even do the school. So that's where our focus has been lately, and so we will do that. And you're going to see this again, and that's certainly what we plan to show.
And I'll leave this alone. But what I'm hearing you say is that this is this is a problem because of where the property lines are and where the houses are and where the intersections are. I don't see that at all. I think this is a problem based on the footprint that you've decided for your school, which you are totally in control of. It's not the neighbor's problem. It's your problem as the developer of the new school. And I think it's well within your ability to solve this. And we brought this to your attention last time you were here, saying that this is something that we expect to be solved.
As I remember, the last meeting we had when Sharon brought this up is that we would work with the property owners in adjacent areas to talk and discuss and see what we could come up with a plan. I didn't hear the thing that says you can't put your footprint there because it's too close to the property line. You said to work out and mitigate any of the issues that were there. And I feel like we have done that.
I don't see any letters from property owners that say that this is okay.
Okay. Well, that's, obviously that's what we're going to do. That's what's necessary.
And also, if I decided to buy a house in that subdivision 10 years from now, I'm not part of that decision-making process. I have a reasonable expectation to buy property that's properly screened from compatible zoning uses.
Well, maybe I could just go back a few bit, because this has been going on since 2003, and we have had the community, we've opened up all the design meetings back and then, and in the last 2 years when we're doing this design, and we invited the property owners adjacent to us to come and participate in the process of this expansion. And during that expansion, as I said earlier, there's over 52 different segments of how we could break this up and show it. And the committee themselves decided, the community, and with the school district decided that this plan was going to, meet the program as necessary. And that in questioning some of the neighbors, we asked that about the distance from the property, from the building, and the fact that the stairway is going to have a lower profile than the building behind it, that it's kind of a step. And we took their inputs, and we said that it's not going to be any closer than the existing building. And we didn't have any resistance to that. In fact, some of them said it's no different than what we got right now. And their complaint was the trash trucks, and this said the trash pickup and the school delivery for food would come on that south property line. And the truck's noise was the most irritating thing to the public that was there. And that's where we moved it to the opposite side, to the north side of the building. So all our access and truck service and trash is going to be on that side. And that was purposely done because of the community's input about the issue. And that was their biggest issue, not the fact that it was close to the property line, but that the noise of those earlier things. And so we did respond to that. So I think if you look at the minutes and the records of what we've been through on this process, it's not just we decided to put it there and that's where it happened to be. There's all these factors that, I could go back to the minutes and pull all that stuff out and show you.
I'll leave that alone. Let somebody else speak. Sharon?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify that under the transition and buffering standards, which is what we're talking about along that south side, there needs to be a 15-foot buffer, and under that standard, there's no opportunity to cluster vegetation. It has to be a continuous 15-foot buffer.
And as I said, last time the commission said to work with us, to try to work with the community and you, and to try to achieve some kind of compromise. That's what I was understood.
Commissioner Joyner.
I had a question on another topic. On the drop-off, I was curious what percentage of the students live too far to walk. I mean, is it most students that maybe the principal knows more than?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, you're probably going to have to address that one.
We only have 2 school buses that come to our school, and each one is pretty full. The school bus holds about 80 kids, so there's probably 140. There's about 160, 180 kids that are eligible for the bus, but some of them walk. We do have a very significant drop-off population, obviously, that drives in. And then there are quite a number that walk to school. I know that at least 80 or 90 come through this access point right here every day. So and quite a few down these streets. We have a pretty narrow zone that runs down Jewel Lake Boulevard, kind of a few blocks on each side, and then a little bit in behind the car store at Diamond and across Raspberry.
I was curious because I know a lot of work's been done, like on Strawberry and in the area, to increase the walkability, and I was wondering
excellent for us.
if it's having an impact and more kids are using it. Because we saw this with the school last month. There's real problems with cars lined up for long times before and after school dropping kids off, and it'd be nice if there's some disincentive to do that, because we've given a lot of incentives for walking, that if maybe there's other places or they can walk 2 blocks or, not that this process maybe looks at that, but just with how.
Well, twice a year we do a walk to school day where we have drop points and the staff go out and walk in with the kids. And so we work to encourage it, but of course in the winter it gets tough because parents like to get their kids close to the school and let them out. And I used to think that all of these folks driving were immersion parents that were coming from all over town. But I started looking carefully in the cars as I got to know kids, and a lot of them come from 3 blocks away.
Well, that's sort of the point, that we're doing a lot of things in our schools to encourage better health, and walking's one of them, and there should be some disincentive for doing that, because this will be the only time in their life till they're senior citizens that they'll be dropped off at the door of any place they go, and they're probably not dropped off at the door of anything else they go to. So there seems to be an expectation that when you go to school, you got to get dropped off at the door, and it'd be nice to have the expectation, well, you at least walk 3 or 4 blocks, go by your friend's house and walk with them, or get let off at the church or something, but not cause a lot of air pollution and health problems by having kids get off at the front door.
I agree, and with the new health program, our health teacher, combined with our nurse, works on that very diligently. And I know when we do those walk to school weeks, it cuts the number of cars in half, and it's fantastic. We've talked about how to make that a more permanent thing for our students, and hopefully over time we'll be able to accomplish more of it.
Okay, thank you.
I don't want to go on too much with this, but the area that Commissioner Doherty was speaking of, I guess the biggest area I have the problem with is where the bus turnaround abuts the 8-foot walk on the south side. Is there no way you guys could rotate that, say from its southeast corner, and kind of get a little more of an S going around the south side of the building, and in doing that provide more of a vegetative pod there? Like you've already done that, but maybe be able to extend that to the north or to the west.
To the west, right. We
probably done this 100 times, and
we originally, had the bus on this side, and we've had resistance from the bus, the bus traffic transportation people about crossing, the traffic lanes from the lineup of the cars in the morning and their schedule, and it was primarily because of that we had to move it to the intersection on this side, because it was coordinated with a light, and there's a left turn in. See, to do the bus over here, they would have to come on the same sequence as the cars would. And
yeah, I understand. I'm just wondering if, even in its current position on the south side, if there's any way to massage it a bit and rotate it from a point where you could put it away from that those 2 residences, because that's where I see the gaping hole of
right
any
there.
kind of buffer.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
If we did, we could. If we move it to the north, then we would have to deal with.
You're talking about. I'm Mary Carey. I'm with Anchorage School District. I'm the project manager. I think what you're talking about is something similar to that.
Yes.
So, Pat, I think you can evaluate what you think about that.
And, that certainly is, a possibility. That we were trying to give the school as much play area, outside play area, and so that's probably why it was pushed there in the first place.
It was my fault. If you look at that space that's in front of the school there is using it for all kinds of recreational and educational purposes, both in winter and in summer. And the community uses this lot a lot for a lot of recreational purposes. So I'm not familiar with UDC, so I said, give us as much space there as you possibly can. But it looks to me like there are ways to do it.
It appears that, to me, that's the biggest gap. You've got vegetation where the drop-off intersects with the entry drive, but if you could do something that was a little more like the plan that's up on the overhead now, that might be a nice thing to do. The other question was, this is an easement, it appears, along the south side.
Yes.
Has there been any talk or questions from homeowners if they could have landscaping or improvements done on their property, that part of the easement? I don't know what the easement's for other than access. There's space there that's not necessarily...
Right.
I just don't know the legalities of the easement, however.
That is interesting. It would, as far as using some of the existing vegetation that they have on their property as far as an easement.
So just some things to think about.
Right. That is an interesting proposition. And particularly where the building is, I guess, at that point. But I guess what I would like to do is, like Mary has already shown you, this is what, we could meet the criteria here. The biggest issue is going to be the access around the building, and that it needs to have a drivable surface. And so that's going to be the biggest issue with the, and if we maybe could plant grass, concrete pavers with grass coming through just for the traffic area, and then the rest of it would be landscaped. I mean, there is some ways we can maybe try to address that.
You again?
Not to harp on that, but, it's not our purpose just to harass people, but the municipality is the one who writes the codes and makes the laws and enforces it for everybody else, and a lot of times businesses and private people don't want to follow them either, but it's our experience most often it's municipal agencies that come and explain why they can't meet the code that the municipality wrote, and that's just a concern for us to have when it could be otherwise, possibly.
I guess I'm the one that misunderstood from the last meeting we had that I was to negotiate and work with compromise on a process of doing this. And, as you can see, it's a moving target because with the contractor involved, and we're finding out issues with the cost and issues that, that constantly change our plan. But I feel that we can make an attempt for the next submittal to show, and explore all those areas you just talked about, and come back with a solution for the south property line.
Sharon?
Thank you. When I was reviewing this, two options were shown for the fire lane. One was the fire lane turnaround in the playground area, and then the other option was to have the fire lane go all around the school. So are you now going with the option of having the fire lane go all around the school rather than the turnaround?
Actually, we were looking at having the truck being able to turn around in the bus lane and create the 300 feet separation between the other side so that they would also have a turnaround over here and a turnaround over here without having them go all the way around. And that's what we've been exploring. The fire department has agreed to certainly this one back here, and there's a question about how far we can back, the truck on that side. But maintenance still has to go around the building, and they still have to have access to that play area. And so they would, they're going to have to have some kind of surface area to drive through there.
But it wouldn't have to be as wide as what would be needed for a fire truck.
That's correct. We could keep it to a minimum if we could make that work.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Okay. Matter rests before the commission. It's time for a motion. Mr. Briggs?
Move to approve UDC case number 2008-114 for concept review of site plan as well as concept review of landscape plan with staff recommendations 1 through 4 pertaining to the landscaping plan and staff recommendations 5, 6, and 7 as pertaining to the site plan with a modification of number 4 to state with the provision of evidence that the adjacent homeowners are satisfied with an equivalent proposal, and best efforts shall be made to have as much of the 15-foot buffer be landscaping. And anybody's welcome to offer friendly amendments.
Do we have a second on that motion? All right, Commissioner Coleman. It's been seconded. Do you want to speak to your motion?
I do. Thank you for coming in front of us. Overall, I think for the landscape and the site plan is well thought out, and I do appreciate the intent of the aesthetics within the site. Specifically, I'd like to comment on or add a little bit to one of the staff comments in the notes that spoke to the outdoor classroom areas and the child waiting area. I think that these areas, even during the winter, will have a high aesthetic value, especially with snowfall, potential for shadow and light, and also acting as children's play elements during the winter. So I definitely support their inclusion and any design of them as they move forward, really to concentrate on the fact that they do act as quite a nice winter design element for those areas. Secondly, for the playground, this is just a comment more than anything else. So there is a single, I assume, a pretty powerful light source that's directly above the playground. And I don't know if the playground is used after hours or not. And I assume that at least for morning recess, it's somewhat light out there. But if they are used after hours, a single source on one side of the playground with component playground structures could create some interesting lighting effects, not necessarily that good. I would encourage, especially from a winter design point of view, to perhaps give a bit more thoughtful lighting using smaller scale pedestrian fixtures, 14-foot poles, whatever it is, to get a more even lighting in that area and more of an aesthetic lighting to create a pleasant playing atmosphere. But that's just a comment of my own on it. And then on the site plan review, not to belabor the point, but I do agree with Commissioner Doherty's assessment and Commissioner Kimmerer's comments that it's a design problem for the 15-foot, maintaining the 15-foot buffer to the south of the building. And I fully understand there's been a design process that has gone through for building programming, size of rooms, modular, access to all those places. But I do find it hard that within that, if a 15-foot buffer had been taken as being an ordinance requirement, that another design solution wouldn't have arrived before us. And then if at the previous UDC meeting there had been discussion that alternative equivalents would be looked at with discussion with the community, a better narrative should have come in front of us that presented what the solution was with some support for that. That would have prepared us better to be a bit faster with our comments probably. But I look forward to seeing what design option will come out of that, trying to maximize that buffer, which unfortunately does come at the expense of play equipment. But as Commissioner Joyner says, we have many petitioners in front of us who, whether out of good of heart or not so good of heart, do try to avoid some of these requirements, and we try and have an even hand. But thank you very much.
Anyone else wants to speak? Mr. Joyner?
Well, I'm concerned about the part of the motion that says that if you're saying that the code doesn't apply if affected property owners agree that it doesn't have to, that concerns me as a precedent, because I think there's a greater good than who owns the property right now, and we have a lot of places in town where we did things because somebody said it was okay then, and 10 years later it's not okay. So I think there's some options for putting in a buffer, and I would not like, I don't think I'll vote on it if we say, unless the property owners say, oh, it's okay. I don't think that's
Are you offering a friendly amendment then?
Well, the motion without the part about showing the property owner, was that your intent, or just to know that they'd been
The intent,
contacted, or that it would be okay that they don't have a buffer if those neighbors say they don't care if there's one?
I would very quickly remove my additions to it. Since this is conceptual review, we would just have this pending what comes in front of us at the next step, with the underlying understanding that we'll have better documentation on what the neighbors do think, and seem some sort of a best effort at making it work. So I would accept the friendly amendment if you wish to strike the addition to the staff recommendation.
Okay, thanks.
And you're okay with that, Commissioner Coleman? Okay. Sharon?
I'm not sure where this is progressing, but there's no opportunity to get letters from neighbors and to waive municipal code.
Yeah, and Peter's removed that requirement. He's left the number 4 as it was originally stated. So time to vote? Do we vote? We'll try this first. Is there any objection to the motion passing? Seeing none, it passes unanimously.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. We don't really have anything else on the agenda tonight. However, we've been alerted that there is a person who wishes to make a presentation. So we've decided to grant 3 minutes for a public testimony. So if you'd like to step forward, you've got 3 minutes to state your case.
Thank you. My name is Mark Grober. I'm an attorney. I've been practicing in the state of Alaska for some 30-odd years. And I've been involved with parks as a user, as a consumer, as an attorney representing partners, as a person involved in pursuing various bond projects and what have you. And I'm, excuse me, I'm fighting a frog in my throat, so if I get unintelligible, my apologies. I'm not here, however, in a professional capacity, though I'm a member of the Northeast Community Council and I live near a number of parks. I'm not here representing any group. I'm here largely in a personal capacity because I think that there's a good deal of confusion abounding in the community about something that's going to end up, Commissioners, in your lap. And I thought it was my responsibility, if you will, as an attorney to say something about it before it became too late. In no small part, there's 2 reasons really why I'm here tonight. On the one hand, my neighbor was trying to figure out if a park plan that's currently going to be discussed was going to end up before the Urban Design Commission. And having tried to work his way through the ordinances, the amendments to the ordinances, and what have you, he came to my house and said, "Damn you all attorneys are responsible for all this disaster, and we should hang you all." And I sympathize with him because having tried to work my way through the ordinance myself and having tried to work through them with Sharon as well, I found them largely as unintelligible as my neighbor did. I've provided Sharon with my comments, and that includes our correspondence. I'm not asking for you to take any action anytime soon, but my comments are directed to the fact that sometime within the next few months, things are going to happen that will end up in your lap, and I'm hoping that you will take the time between now and then not only to look at potentially public frustration with how the ordinances are written, even though I understand that it's not up to you how those ordinances are written, but this is an adjudicative agency with some plenary authority. And so you do have the authority to set your own rules and practice and procedures. And I think that would go a small way into helping people understand what you expect. and also to address the major problem, which I think is something that I would like to see at least this commission address in the next couple of months. And that major issue is the fact that there is presently a matter that is being discussed before the Parks and Recreation Commission. And the Parks and Recreation Commission staff has apparently determined that their behavior, which on its face does not comply with Title II 4060, which sets out the obligations for participation in community councils, that those provisions are essentially not going to be complied with, which essentially, as I understand it, means that eventually, should we decide or should someone determine what plan is before the Parks and Rec Commission, and should the Parks and Rec Commission eventually act on that, and should those actions get before this commission may be faced with a recommendation from the Parks and Recreation Commission, which in fact has been adopted in violation of municipal ordinance. And I would request of the commissioners that over the next couple of months, if there's an opportunity that you consider your plenary authority and the possibility that you might want to consider the disaster that might become of a situation like that, especially where hearings are discretionary in the situation before you, and perhaps provide the Parks Commission, which is in this position in the process they've just become in this place in this process because of the amendments. And I think it would be helpful to the Parks and Rec Commission and staff if you could use your plenary authority to identify to them what you would expect vis-a-vis the participation of the community councils. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments? Okay. Anything from staff?
No, I just had made copies of this ordinance that transferred site plan authority over to the Urban Design Commission. I know that you all have received copies in the past, but I just wanted to give you another copy to in case we needed to refer to that tonight in reference to Mr. Grover's testimony here.
About at the last meeting, we talked about drafting language relating in sort of response to what happened at the Begich Middle School. Who was responsible for drafting some? I'm looking at you, Patricia.
Mark and I were...
Actually, a subcommittee.
We talked about it and decided that at this time the mayor probably wasn't going to be receptive to something about some trees at a school, and thought if our purpose was to make some changes, that it's better to wait and do it later or through our meeting with the school district, because we're going to have an interim mayor and then a new mayor. And
I'd encourage you guys to draft the language while the issues are still fresh, and we can then decide our next course of action in terms of who we present that to. But I mean, there's some things that we've seen recently that we're thinking about right now, and I'm just thinking in 6 months, those issues may not be very fresh in our minds.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Yes.
Sharon, I noticed that we're getting conditional use approval also, or just site plan?
What's the timing, Sharon, on the presentation tonight? Reminding me of the fact that there is a lack of clarity in the existing Title 21. One of the key components of the new Title 21 rewrite is better organization, better clarity. When is there current sort of ETA for being able to put a new Title 21 in front of us?
Well, they're going step by step with the Planning and Zoning Commission and then the Assembly with the sections of it. I'm not quite sure where they are, but it's my understanding by the spring, they hope to have it all wrapped up and have the Assembly approve the entire rewrite.
Do you have additional comments from the presentation we just had?
I have some email, but I didn't bring them in here tonight.
But they submitted those comments to, what, Planning and Zoning this week?
We should back up. Which comments are you talking about, Patricia?
The ones we just had. I didn't get his name.
Oh, those comments?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the work session that we had last week.
No, I've been responding to Mr. Grober's comments. Would it be possible for you to come by the office tomorrow? We can sit down and kind of go over these. It's really difficult to do it over email.
I can certainly give you a call.
Okay.
But as I said, the email I sent you this evening with the testimony has the distillation of all the email correspondence so far.
Right.
And the selection of the ordinances, charter provisions that are out.
Right. Yeah, it'd be, I think, easier to sort this out if you came by and we could just sit down and go through those.
And the point being, if there's something we should discuss, maybe you could explain it because it's not clear at all to me.
Right. Nor to me, in fact.
Any other discussion? This is our last meeting of the year?
I think it is, yeah.
Jeez, it's kind of like a holiday meeting.
Oh, that brings up a good point. We only had one case tonight, but next month, we got like 9 applications in for January. And so we're going to have 2 meetings in January, so fun times are over. I think at this point, we've got 5 and 4 cases on each agenda. So brace yourself.
Ho, ho, ho.
Hey, Sharon, is there any way, because I'm figuring I'm going to have to recuse on some to break them up, where maybe
Right.
one meeting is...
I don't know if it'll be easy, it's going to be easy to accommodate you. We'll do what we can, but it's...
Restack them, all of your conflicts.
Can we schedule the other additional meeting as soon as possible?
Yeah, it's for January 2nd, I think, no, I forgot now, but the second meeting is January 28th. And whatever the second Wednesday, it's the 13th, so it's going to be January 13th and the 28th.
I have a little inside information on Mr. Grober's presentation, which I believe that, and I don't know if it's appropriate to speak about it or not.
Yes, I would appreciate because I'm completely lost what he was talking about. I don't have a clue. Somebody's doing something.
We're gauging the appropriateness of having this on the record versus maybe discussion after we adjourn. Would that be
I think adjournment is
agreeable?
acceptable, yeah.
Can we have a motion to adjourn? If there's nothing else,
move to adjourn.
I second it.
Okay. Any objection? So we're adjourned. So, Mark, what do you know?